guys and gals? Never here from Drake Wing Gaming. Something mounts to the Gaming Drag. Today I'm coming back at you with the Let's Play episode of Polar Night. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump right back into it, shall we? Alarm chain, you are up, and let's go. How exactly is Garret gonna get out of this one? Oh. 1 second, y'all. Alright, sorry about that, y'all. I had loaded up the wrong version. Alright, let's go ahead and jump right back into it, shall we? I continued screaming, my voice becoming increasingly shrill and desperate. I scanned the dark just beyond the white flurries for something, anything that might be life. A light, a flare. Light, of course! I reached into my pocket, feeling a sense of relief when it closed around the sturdy torch June had given me back during the blackout. Thank Christ I'd kept it. I flashed it around me, continuing to scream and shout for help. I had no idea how far the beam would travel in these conditions, but at least I wasn't in near total darkness. Then I heard it. It was subtle at first, almost inaudible against the buffeting wind. Then it sounded again. Could have sworn it was a voice. Distant. Faint. With a final despairing look around for any possible evidence of my former crewmates or the Sylvia, I turned, pricking my ears and pointing them this way and that to pinpoint the source of the sound. Trudging through the snow, I felt my body weaken. The wind and snow seemed to suck the warmth from me. Every minute that passed left me less able to move. My steps shortened and slowed. My eyes felt heavier. The voice, or whatever it was, faded. I continued on regardless in the direction I was moving. Because really, what else could I do? Mum, oh God. Now we're both going to be lost out here, unmarked, unburied. When Mum passes, unloved. One step, another. My hips and legs hurt. My stomach and my paws were numb. How long had I been walking now? How far was I from where I'd started? Stupid. I shouldn't have moved. Now, even if there were any survivors, they'd have no chance of finding me. Just when it felt like my knees were going to finally give, plunging me face first into the endless white, I heard another noise. Oh, shit. Yep, Lovecraftian horror. I abandon hope all ye enter. Different from the first, it sounded big. I stopped in my tracks, straining my ears once more, trying to listen for it again. As I listened, the winds around me started to subside. The snow eased and my line of sight expanded, giving me a better view of my surroundings. Oh shit. Oh shit, that's super detailed. This is impossible. As the blizzard eased, she came into view, and for a moment everything else fell away. Oh, it's the groaning of the ship against the ice, okay. The groaning of metal sounded once more, like she was a wounded beast crying out in pain. I'd found her. I'd found the Arran. There were no sounds of life, no lights, no movement that I could see. I noticed a snow mound piled up against her stern. There was nothing else I could see along her hull that would allow me to get aboard, so I began making my way there. Second, y'all. Water time. The snow mound wasn't easy to climb, but it clearly had time to settle into a natural ramp. I scrambled up on my hands and knees, my whole body shaking violently and my eyes heavy with fatigue. But finally I reached the bulwark and dragged myself over into the deck. I wasn't entirely sure what I'd expected to see. Devastation, holes in the hull, maybe even bodies. But besides a layer of snow and ice and the groaning of the equipment under the weight of 2 years of neglect, it seemed almost normal. Only one broken window marred an otherwise shockingly pristine scene. And part of me found that more concerning, if anything. But for now, I couldn't think on it. I needed shelter, warmth. I spied an open door leading inside, creaking and swaying in the breeze with each passing moment. The hope of survivors faded. Once inside, I closed the door behind me, hoping to see some of the frigid wind out. Hello, is anyone there? Please, someone help! Only the sound of the wind outside, the rattling of equipment, and the sounds of doors rhythmically slamming in the breeze answered me. I'd never felt so cold in my life. My nose felt like a lump of ice. My paws were numb and my hands were tucked under my arms, hugging myself in the vain hope of warming myself. Okay, Garret, first things first. Find warmth. But on a ship this huge, where would I even start looking? No power, but no central heating. My clothing felt like a lead weight on me. Soaked through as I was, my clothing was far more of a hindrance to getting warm at this point. I started to strip, my hands barely able to unlace my boots or unzip my jacket, they were shaken so violently. Once naked, I tried to shake off what I could. While the ice-cold water wasn't directly sucking warmth from me anymore, even the soft breeze inside the ship was enough to cause me to shiver. I needed alternative clothing, a blanket, something. A ship this size must have a huge kitchen and probably gas stoves. If the crew had survived for a while, they might have gathered supplies in a central place, like the mess hall or below decks. Ah! No, not now! My eye burned, forcing me to lean against the wall as I clamped a hand over it. My other fumbled in my sodden clothes from my pocket. Wait, where is it? I pulled out both bottles and squinted at them, tears welling up as the pain made me grip my teeth. Fuck. Neither is proximedicane. They're both diclofenac. My heart dropped. I must have picked up 2 bottles of the diclo by accident. With an angry snarl, I shoved one back into my pocket, then unscrewed the other, forced my eye open and squeezed. The cold of the liquid, no doubt even cooler on account of being soaked in frigid seawater, soothed the pain on contact, but my eye still burned. I have no choice but to wait for it to kick in. Squinting through the pain, I scanned for signs, maps, or directions to somewhere that could hold something useful. The walls were a mess of warnings, notices, signage about hard hats or hazards, but I did find directions. Mess hall and hospital. Second, y'all. Water time. I continued a bit further and saw a set of icy-looking steps leading down into pitch darkness. The stairs were barely wide enough for 2 people. At the bottom, my light caught a sign on the wall. Engine room. Clothes. I needed clothes. From these 3 possibilities, the hospital seemed like the best shot. Even if I could only find blankets, it was better than nothing. The hospital was fortunately signposted pretty heavily. I had to climb a set of icy steps to reach it, my paws nearly sliding out from under me. I clung to the handrail for dear life as I made my way up. On my way, I continued to call out. Only the soft wail of the wind blowing through the interior answered me. When I arrived, the door was plain and unassuming. It was marked with a green cross and hospital. Just before I gripped the handle, a thought struck me. Gail, Tabby, their mum was the ship's doctor. What if I found her? I hadn't found any other bodies so far, but that was no guarantee. Besides, I couldn't think of many places on board where I'd be more likely to find dead people. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and let myself in. Is anyone there? Nothing, of course. Next to the door was a desk with old, faded papers scattered on them. A PC. Its screen covered with a layer of frost stood silently. Beyond the desk was a set of disheveled beds. Fortunately, they were empty. I sat my soaked clothes onto a nearby table and started pulling blankets off the nearby bed. They were chilly but dry. I wrapped one tightly around my shoulders, another around my waist like an absurd skirt. I already felt like I felt a little better. With the intense chill softened by the blankets, I felt more able to look around. I stepped carefully around the desk, examining some of the papers strewn about, but most of them had deteriorated too much to be legible. In all honesty, I didn't really know what I had expected. Bodies, maybe. The total lack of any signs of the crew was gnawing at me. There were a few shelves and some fridges full of drugs and medicines. I wondered if they'd have any proxy. It was a long shot, but my stinging eye decided for me that it was at least worth a look. I tried the fridges first, but I was quickly overwhelmed by an onslaught of unfamiliar drug names. When I examined the vials, a lot of them were misted with frost, the clear liquid which seemingly unchanged. With increasing frustration, I checked each vial, bringing it up to my torch before sliding it back. No proxy. Just lots of drugs that I had no idea the purpose of. This was a waste of time. I cursed and staggered back, pressing my back against the wall to try and stay upright. How much time had I wasted? I needed a heat source. My eye could wait. But I was still confused at the lack of any presence on board. Did they evacuate? If so, where? I glanced at the desk with the computer, stacks of paper strewn across the desk. Amongst the ruined paper and notes, one piece caught my eye. It was better preserved than the rest, although still mostly obscured by damp and the ink had faded or smudged beyond legibility. I gently scooped it up, afraid it would turn to mush in my hands. It was handwritten, faded but parts were still legible. Staff are, with increasing regularity. Shifts are often operating and produced, much as half strength. I informed Dixon that my staff were overworked as it is, but she insisted we continue with the agreed-upon plan. Assuming the situation does not worsen, which we have enough chlorpromazine, and to last another 6 weeks. The diazepam is nearly exhausted, and I would strongly object to the widespread use of flunitrazepam, particularly due to its potential for abuse. Require contact with mainland to discuss possible causes, but I am lodging a formal complaint with Captain McGregor's insistence on continuing despite morale is hard enough to maintain without stalking the corridors and shouting. Not much use. Apart from the diazepam, I didn't recognize any of the drugs named, but it seemed clear a medical professional wrote this, maybe even Dr. Waters herself. In any case, there wasn't much I could glean from it. I'd wasted enough time. I could barely stand anymore. I needed to find warmth before I lost consciousness. Forcing myself upright, I staggered to the door, my mind already searching for where to go next. Where do I go? Let's go to the mess hall. The doors leading to the mess hall were closed tightly. At first I thought it was locked, but after pushing against it I realized something on the other side was leaning against it. With a shove that probably would have been near effortless had I been in a better state, the door creaked open and on iced hinges. I slipped my body into the crack for once, thankful for the skinny frame. Hello? Nothing. Around me my voice echoed amongst the empty tables, strewn with what looked like remains of food tins, packs and snacks, water bottles and drink cans. I paused, giving the air a sniff. As much as my nose hurt from the frost nip, I still had my sense of smell at least. A part of me braced for the scent of death, of any of the Arran's crew's remains. The air only carried a faint, musty smell. The smell of the clothes left in a humid closet for a long time, which was a relief. With another shove, I squeezed myself through the door. It was almost pitch black. Only the tiniest amounts of moonlight was making it through the thoroughly frosted-over windows. As I surveyed the room, it quickly became clear that this had been a shelter of some kind. Makeshift beds were scattered on the floor along with utensils, but where was everyone? This place had clearly been used by people waiting for rescue, but there was no sign of bodies. I couldn't help but feel that the state of the place suggested its occupants had left in a hurry, but if so, where? All the doors were closed, presumably to keep the heat in, and there were still boxes of cans, tins, and packets of food. No, I had to stop this. I had more pressing needs. I needed a working heater to warm up. I paced down the row of repurposed tables and benches, tipped over either to form blanket-covered one-person shelters or possibly in a fight. It was difficult to tell from the general disarray. My dread grew as I failed to spot anything like a heater, not even a barrel with wood. How the hell had they kept so warm? That was when I noticed the shutter separating the dining area from the adjacent room. Of course, the kitchen! Maybe it had gas stoves. Surely a gas stove and some matches would warm me up, even just for a little while, to stave off the frostbite, to keep me awake. I staggered to the door next to the shutter, my teeth clattering, and turned the handle. Bloody fucking hell! I turned and pulled and finally slammed my shoulder against it, but it didn't move. I doubted my skinny frame would have budged it. Even if I wasn't near collapse, I leaned against the door, eyes closed and panting with exertion. What I wouldn't have given to be able to just curl up and sleep right now. There were bedrolls all around me. The kitchen was out of the question. The shutter looked, if anything, even more impregnable. How much time had I wasted? My eye no longer hurt, thankfully, but I couldn't tell if it was because the diclo had kicked in or general pain in my body had made it less noticeable. Alright, y'all, I'm going to pause it right there. Thank y'all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and check out our Patreon if you can. It always helps. Before I go, I'm going to give a quick shout out to our lovely bronze tier patrons. Thank y'all for all I do for the channel. We greatly appreciate your support. Thank you, our silver tier patron, Cade Silver, and thank you above beyond. It's greatly appreciated. Thanks to our 2 gold tier patrons, Zeke and Toby. Y'all are awesome. We love you. Thank you for subbing to Ultimate Tier. Anyway, if you want to get your names in the credits, get access to all of our not safe for more content as little as $5. Alrighty, I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye!